Assalamu alaikum dear students, I'm Mutahar, your English language teacher. Today we are going to start our first lecture with the first word of revelation, Iqra, which means in English, to read. So here we are going to start with the reading strategy. As a matter of fact, there are several strategies which are followed by different people for reading. But the one which I usually suggest to my students to enhance in very short time their reading skills is SQP and then RRR. It is not a word, it's an acronym where every letter stands for a word itself. Where the letter S stands for survey. Right after S, we move on to Q, where Q stands for question. And P is for both either the paragraph or the passage itself as a whole. Once we are done with surveying, question and reading paragraph, we move on to the first R, which is in fact the translation of the first word of revelation as well, to read. The sole purpose of reading is to understand. If you are lucky to have read and understood in the very first attempt, then there is no need to move on to the second R. But if you read but fail to understand, then you will have to move on to the second R, which stands for repeating. So the second R of this reading strategy, SQP, RRR, is for repeating. We repeat whatever we have read, whether it's a paragraph or a sentence, whether it is the question or anything else. If we fail to understand in the first time, we repeat. The question is how many times. In fact, it varies from one individual to another. But on an average, you should repeat that difficult sentence at least 2 times. Once you have read and repeated 2 times, then you will be able enough to understand, which is the sole purpose of reading. And once you have understood, you would be in a position to come to the third R, which is rephrase. What is rephrasing? Rephrasing, in fact, is the art of expressing whatever you have read in your own words, but not in detail. Always remember, rephrasing means that you have to express your understanding in a little concise, summarized fashion. Now we come back to the first letter of this strategy, which is surveying. What is surveying? Surveying, in fact, is the art of reading anything or everything whichever comes before the first paragraph of the passage. The question is, why do we survey? We survey just to have a feel what the passage is all about. If after surveying you come to know you have already read this passage, then you will be having a lot of confidence at the time of reading and understanding the whole passage. Then the question is, why do you read the questions before reading the paragraph? Because while reading paragraphs or the whole passage, you have to decide what is important and what is not. And this can be only decided once we have read the question. Because in order to find the question and its answer, we have to keep in our mind the keywords. Those content words will help you decide whether the information provided to you in the paragraph or the passage is important or not. If it is, then I think you are going to highlight it, you are going to mark it, you are going to note it. And if it is not, you will skip and move on to wherever you find the information which is related to the question asked. And of course, having survey and read the question, we come to the paragraph. When we talk about the Cambridge Assessment International Examination, here the candidates are lucky to follow this strategy. Why? Because every question is given under the heading of a paragraph. So, right after reading the question, we go to the relevant paragraph and we try to find the answer. We try to find the answer to the question which is underneath a specific paragraph. So, we can easily relate the question to the paragraph because in the English language 1123, which is in fact the code of this paper in the Cambridge Assessment and National Examination, questions can be related to the paragraphs and paragraphs can be related to the question. Here, we are not supposed to read the whole passage. So, if we follow the simplest strategy of S, Q, P, and then R, 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 nobody can stop us from reading, understanding, and then writing an answer in own words. Now, if we talk about the reading paper of Cambridge, it is comprised of two sections. Section 1, which is called reading, for ideas. This section of reading paper is comparatively less challenging, or in other words, a little easier than the other section. The question is, what makes this section easier? In this section 1, reading for ideas, we have a passage. The passage, which is comprised of approximately 700 words. Your job is to read that passage and then answer the questions. And the questions of this section are divided into three categories. The first is a question where you have to look for the content points. In the second question, you have to write the summary of those content points. And finally, the question is, I must say, short answer question. Alright? Now let's see how this strategy is applied onto this section on reading for ideas. In the first type of the question where you have to look for the content points, you just go to the question, you read where it is categorically mentioned to collect the points, for instance the advantages or the disadvantages. Once you have understood the question in which you have to look for the advantages, you go to the relevant paragraph or the whole passage or the number of paragraphs and you start collecting after reading the content points. Altogether you have to collect 12 content points. Alright? So once you have read the question, you know what you have to look for. You go to the relevant paragraph, you read each and every sentence, you understand, and if you don't, you repeat. And once you have found those content points, you start gathering them one after the other. So see how pertinent this strategy is to the section one of reading. Once we have collected all the content points, then we move on to the next question of writing a summary. Here, you have to repeat what you have done before while collecting the content points, but in a different fashion. The fashion is that these collected content points are to be written in the form of a paragraph using your own words. So, dear students, if you have understood, practiced and applied this strategy onto the passage, then nobody can stop you from collecting the content points and writing those content points in your own words, because rephrasing means expressing what you have read and understood in your own words, not necessarily 100%, but as much as you can, wherever you can. So, this reading strategy will help you a lot in attempting section 1, reading for ideas and answering all the questions, ensuring 100% marks. Now we come to the last section, the short answer question, which is usually comprised of few marks like 3. Again, you will apply the same reading strategy. You will read the question, which is usually looking for either a fact or an opinion, right? Once you have read the question, you go to the relevant paragraph. When you go to the paragraph, you read the paragraph sentence after sentence. Once you have read and understood, even after repeating those sentences of the paragraph 1 to 2 times, you will be able enough to locate where the fact is. Remember, fact is a verifiable statement. If you are asked to look for the opinion, then you will have to apply the same strategy and look for the opinion. And mind you, opinion is a personal statement. At several occasions, you will not have to even use the third R, which is rephrasing, because rephrasing is required only when there is a demand of the question to write your answer in your own words. If the own words requirement is not present in the question, so remember, dear students, you can simply lift and write the answer from the relevant paragraph. So this is the simple strategy of reading, which should be applied whenever you read, whatever you read, to understand and express in your own words. I hope that this lecture will help you a lot in improving your reading skills by the virtual shape practice. Thank you very much. I'll be seeing you soon in the next lecture of mine. Assalamu alaikum.